Hi, welcome to the third episode of What Our Parents Said. With me, as always, is Landen Wood. I am Jack Woods. We are the Woodsmen here at the DePaul chapter of the Delta Upsilon fraternity. Thanks and shout out to our president, Trevor Hofteaser. Obviously want to make...
It's definitely Hofteaser.
Hofteaser?
Hofteaser.
Wow. Well, I'm not getting an exec position next semester. Are you kidding?
I'd be scared if you try.
No, we do apologize for the poor audio last episode. We decided to put our microphone directly next to the air conditioning unit. So the audio came out a little wonky. We did what we could. It sounded a lot worse than it actually was. Now this time, if you hear cicadas in the background, well, we can't help that either. So we're just going to push through it.
Never would have thought that we would have regretted being sponsored by Honeywell.
Yeah, you know, we are, okay, full disclaimer, we are not actually sponsored by Honeywell air conditioning units. We do want to be, though. So if there are any Honeywell executives listening to this right now, we would certainly appreciate your support. And we'll feature your air conditioning unit in every single episode from the time you sponsor us on, because it is miserably hot in this room. I cannot wait to go and get my laundry from the laundry room. Landon, how are you doing today?
Oh yeah, doing great, you know. Just Monday at college. It's a great day.
Monday at and did you happen to do anything school related today at all?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Did you go to classes? Did you do the whole shebang? Did you do
Going
homework?
classes right now is just rolling out of bed and hitting on my laptop.
Yes.
At times.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes. We had originally planned to get up today at like 6:45 and go meditate and run, and we were going to be super active, and then 6:45 rolled around and I just hit the snooze button until my 9 a.m. and then I got out of bed and we talked with a writer in class today. So how about that?
Yeah. You know who did run?
I do not know what did run.
Sam ran.
Sam Prendergast ran at 6:45 in the morning.
Indeed. He waited on us.
I really appreciate his fitness aficionado status. It's too excessive. You know, if you're doing like 3 workouts a day, what are you trying to hide? That's what I want to know. What are you trying to overcome? But anyways, let's get right into it. I know that you're draining energy because you've clearly just been doing schoolwork all day. But today's episode, it's about fear. What our parents taught us about fear. Landon, let me just ask you, what did your parents teach you about fear?
I think fear was something to overcome. The only reason why it was brought up was as an obstacle. So fear was something that you had to get over to better yourself and to really pursue your goals.
Okay. Yeah.
What was your perspective of fear as a child?
What my parents taught me about fear, they didn't teach me about fear. They installed the fear of God in me. My mom used to say, if you get in trouble at school, you should expect to get in twice as much trouble at home.
Jeez. I think that was my experience through all of elementary school, but after that, it completely changed.
So your perspective on fear changed after elementary school?
Yeah, after 6th grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was that driving force? What made you overcome fear?
Well, my mom divorced my ex-stepdad, so that him out of the house was a big fear removal tactic.
Wow.
If you say so, yeah.
Yeah, I was just afraid of bringing home a B on my report card.
I was also afraid of that, but I was afraid of not making my parents proud. So they didn't instill the fear in me. I just naturally had it. So they told me, like, hey, get over it. You'll be fine. We're proud of you. We love you. You're doing great. Just keep on going. And I still, for whatever reason, had a shit ton of fear.
Well, my parents, they were very open about the idea of consequences. And really the fear of getting punished was installed in me. And that's not like a detriment to their character. That's just what they did. My mom told me one time before like a rec league baseball tournament that I was too afraid of the ball and that I needed to grow a pair and hit a pair.
I've heard you're too afraid of the ball. Yeah, I've heard that one before.
Yeah.
Like it's like you're not manly enough. Like just that hint of you should be afraid because you aren't enough.
Well, I mean, it wasn't the fact that I wasn't manly because I was a fucking 9-year-old, but but I mean, it's like I was afraid of failing. That's the best way to put it. I've always been afraid of failing. Inadequacy and failures is my biggest fear in life, and that's kind of what's kept me at bay until I really branched out my senior year and just decided to not be afraid of anything at all.
You went from one side of the spectrum to the complete other side of the spectrum.
Yes. Once I stopped fearing the consequences of my actions, once I just learned to accept them for what they were, oh my God, life changed for the better.
Okay, so for clarification, you didn't negate the consequences, though. Like, you didn't just ignore them. You just accepted them for what they are.
Well, the consequences drove me to making decisions. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. I lived a lot of my life the same way.
Like, you know, you don't leave mom's side in the grocery store because she can't find you. And, I mean, Lord knows what happens when she does. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So, how did that, like, switching from one side of the spectrum to the other, did that free you? Also, what were some of the consequences of letting go of consequences?
So the fear of consequence, as I've said, it drove me, but what drove me away, I guess, was that I was just so tired of living under a microscope. I was just so tired of being held at bay for expressing who I wanted to be and doing the things that I wanted to do and trying the things I wanted to try. And it's not that fear of what my parents would do to me made me respect them, because obviously I respected them for who they were and who they were as people. It's just that the fear of consequences hindered me in what I wanted to do. And senior year was really the first time that I just started to branch out and do different things. I was always afraid of showcasing my abilities. I was always afraid of being the center of attention. I was always afraid of standing out in a crowd. And then senior year rolled around, and you know, I guess I was just so tired of living underneath somebody else's umbrella that I applied for a hockey writing job on Twitter. And within 3 months, I was meeting some of Nashville's biggest hockey stars in the Predators locker room.
That's crazy.
So it's like letting go of that fear opened up so many opportunities and opened up so many doors. And I would dare say I am the best NHL 20 player in the house. I would dare say I am the biggest hockey.
Didn't Jacob beat you?
He beat me in my room, 2-1 series win, and then I went up to his room and clean swept him. So series wise, we're tied.
Okay.
No.
Oh, and for some context, there are 2 flags in Jack's room. That's where you are right now. One of them is a DePaul Tigers flag, and the other is a Predators flag.
Yes. And then I have the wonderful painting that my fiance made me. I'm Jack Woods. I'm kind of a big deal. That's, of course, implied. I mean, we don't really need to talk about why I'm a big deal, but I am. And
Sure, man. Absolutely.
No, I'm not. That's why I'm doing a podcast. But I will say that fear has kept me at bay from pursuing my dreams, and my biggest dream in life is to one day become a stand-up comedian. And I've started writing jokes. My father has been, he was hesitant at first. He was like, "Are you sure comedy's the way you want to go?" And then he bought me a comedy writing book, 2 or 3 of them actually, and they have that really showed me that my parents were on board with my dreams, and they were on board with the fact that I'm not really afraid of anything anymore.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. With fear, so there was like this combination of fear and confidence.
Yeah.
Once you let go of fear, then it allowed you to be more authentic because you weren't afraid of who you were anymore.
No, and the public perception of me is out of my control. We talked about control last episode, but also the fear of what other people thought of me definitely kept me at bay as well. So it's like I had the fear of consequence and the fear of what people are going to think of me. And once I dropped both those fears, holy shit, my life got so much better. I don't know if that's the same experience for you.
One of the lessons that my now stepdad, absolutely love him to death, has given me ever since he's known me was be you. When he first met me, I could tell that he saw something in me, and for one, he saw extreme potential and work ethic, and two, he saw an extreme fear of being who I am.
You are a very hard worker.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But he always gave me this be you because I've always been afraid of being me.
Mm-hmm.
And very similar, it sounds like to you, is afraid of being authentic, afraid of what will I end up being, how will people see me if I truly just let loose, like a fear of who you could be, which is just the worst foundation for insecurities, because they just spawn from there, and then you just constantly break yourself down simply from the fear of being who you are.
Yeah. And okay, so go kind of going off of that, how has your perception of fear affected who you are? Right out of the gates with the tough questions. Sorry, man.
It's all good. Fear is what motivated me to read a bunch. Fear was what motivated me to think, always ask questions, and sit and observe and answer my own questions. I feel like if I wasn't afraid of the things around me, then I wouldn't have been the curious thinker that I am, along with a bunch of other variables. But thoughts and my imagination were the things that I relied on to get through fear. If I didn't want to be afraid of my surroundings, I would just recede into my own mind and trying to spark creativity or spark some sort of escape. It was to spawn some sort of inspiration or interaction, some sort of way to get out of my own thought process and get out of my surroundings by being inspired by what I could think of. And so I do have a question for you. And this kind of goes towards how larger institutions use fear. So I personally think that fear is the most controlling aspect or emotion that you can use onto a group of people.
Oh, without a doubt.
So if you want a massive amount of people to back up one thing, then you absolutely go for fear. You want them to be afraid of consequences. You want them to be afraid of other people. It is the foundations for some of the cruelest and most criminal acts that you can think of is simply from fear. So with that, do you think there's anything more motivating than fear?
Optimistically, I would like to say hope. Optimistically, I would like to brand humanity in a positive light that good beats bad and good always triumphs in the end, but that's not necessarily true, and good and bad are simply two sides of the same coin. I do believe that immediate results stem from fear. I do believe that you can control people largely through fear. And the biggest example I can bring up right now is what's going on in the political atmosphere in the United States. You have two sides who are very, very, very afraid to lose. And they're very afraid to lose, and that's being instilled in every single voter in America right now. We can't lose. That's the mentality of both sides. I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not.
It's like we don't want 4 more years of Donald Trump, or we don't want to go back to the Obama years. I do believe that fear is a large, large piece in maintaining and refurbishing control and power over people. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it comes down to mob mentality.
Yeah, without a doubt.
When I think of media right now, I just think of fear. Like when you think on what am I going to get from the news right now? And it doesn't matter if you turn on to the far right, the far left, the trying to be neutral, but we know nothing is neutral. All of it is fear-based. All of it is check in tonight at 9 to see what your kids are doing and how you can prevent it. I mean, it's that scare tactic, and it's just constant scare tactics. It's 9 o'clock on a Tuesday night. Do you know where your children are? Like, it's just fear. It's nonstop fear. And
I'm sorry, I'm just...
Yeah.
Do you know why I'm laughing? Because my mom is tuning into that. Oh, that's terrific.
Fear is the scariest thing because it only lives in your mind.
It has to be installed in your brain.
Because fear isn't, I think in general, fear is definitely a scare tactic because most of the fear that we live in nowadays with our modern golden age of we do not have to worry about literally anything. When it comes to survival skills, we don't have to worry about anything except for trying to not being in a toxic relationship. Like that's probably one of the only things that we as people have to worry about when it comes to like the hierarchy of needs.
Right, like we're not having to go out with a bow and arrow and shoot a deer.
Yeah, or we don't have to worry about like things that are happening across the globe of our house being destroyed by a bomb because of wars or our parents being shot. Like we are extremely privileged as Americans, so instead of just
we are extremely privileged as white Americans. We should probably say
that is true. We are more privileged from a hierarchical perspective. We are at the top of the food chain as white men. If you take that paradigm, if you think of like the least privileged person in America, considering that they aren't homeless and have some sort of income, they are probably still the top 1% of the entire world. That's a crazy statistic to think about, like, oh my god, we have homeless people, we have poor people in America, and they are blindsided and not thought about. Well, honestly, they are in better positions than a lot of other situations in the entire world simply because they're in America. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, and so how would you relate that to fear then?
And the reason why I say you would think in like we are standing on the shoulders of basically slavery, right?
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
I think it's for every American there are 3 slaves that power our technology, our clothes, and all of the things that we live with on a daily basis and things that we consume. It's a crazy statistic that we don't talk about because we don't like to recognize the fact that we're basically Rome.
Well, America was founded on 2 things. One of them we don't like to talk about, and the other one was tobacco. So,
yeah,
straight out of T.J. Miller's Meticulously Ridiculous, one of the most brilliant observations I've ever heard.
But go back to my biggest point is that you would think that this fear would disappear when we are so privileged as an entire country, but instead it just like gets shifted into a different direction. Instead we're just like, well, you think you're safe, but you're not. So it's like the safer we get and the more privilege that we have as an entire country, the more fearful we become that we're going to lose it. And that's kind of why we're in the political situation that you've said, is both sides are just completely afraid of fear. Isn't that weird? You're afraid to be afraid. And that's kind of where we're at in the political spectrum, because we don't have a reason to be afraid. We just keep making up reasons to be afraid. So you're like, oh, I'm going to pull up Twitter and see what political fucking thing I'm going to be afraid at right now. Or what did Donald Trump say where I could be angry and afraid that something terrible is going to happen in my country? And so at the same time, we constantly look for a reason to be afraid, and as we're looking to be afraid, we immobilize ourselves to stop doing anything.
Holy shit, Landon.
So that's the fear that I see in our entire country right now.
You know, I was kind of wondering how you were going to wrap that back around, and not only...
took a second.
Not only did you just smack me in the face with, like, this whole new perspective, that was terrific.
Thank you.
And, well, that reminds me of the movies that we've been watching recently. We've been watching Star Wars.
Yeah.
What's one of Chancellor Palpatine's, like, main driving force in converting Anakin to the dark side?
Okay.
All those who gain power are afraid to lose it.
Yes. And so if you go from this Western perspective of fear, it also boils down to this good versus evil idea, okay? Right. So it's always this, okay, we are the good. By the simple fact that we're Americans, we are the good side, and you always have to look out for the evil. Like, it has super World War II propaganda vibes of loose lips, sink ships. That's super, it's close enough.
You want to do it with me? You want to do it with me?
America! Fuck yeah! America! Yeah, nobody knows the middle words. But the America part's what's most important. But yeah, it's that good versus evil. And what's crazy about that to me is how foreign that is to other philosophies.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, on the Western side, it's good always prevails, and evil will come forth and try to take us and subvert us, but good will always conquer. And you're like, that sounds awesome, and I really like watching that in every single action movie I watch, in every single thing that's produced by Hollywood. But in, like, history, is that true? And I think in the Eastern, like, a more Eastern approach to the idea would be that life is simply the balance of positive energy and negative energy, which is simply duality, because our perspective chooses what's good and what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, off of that, if you say that if you would, like, completely rearrange the spectrum, your perspective could be exactly the same, that good conquers evil, but you could be like, America is evil and the rest of the world is good, trying to escape the tyranny of... And so then good conquering evil would be a country overcoming America. I'm not saying that's my perspective. I'm just saying, like, if you want to completely flip shit around, it is simply just two different types of energy just constantly balancing themselves out.
You know, my father-in-law would just be so happy that not only I referenced Team America in my podcast, but now I'm going to actively talk about it. Well, that's just that was the whole premise of Team America. Yeah. We like to think we're the good guys, but are we really the good guys? Yeah. We live in a very privileged country where, like you said, we have to create problems, right? And I'll go back to 1865 because you and Sam intimidate me when you talk about world history and the origins of warfare, and I'm just sitting there like, did you guys see the funny video on YouTube that I sent you? Did you get the cat picture that I sent? No, you know what? I'm gonna drop some American history on your ass.
Okay.
So 1865. Mid-April, early April, that's when Robert E. Lee surrenders to Ulysses S. Grant at Appomattox Courthouse, which is the name of a town, by the way. Not like they met at the Appomattox Courthouse. No, they met in Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia.
Wow, that's a town?
That's a town. Like, they loved that courthouse so much, they named the town after it. Which,
what happens in that courtyard?
Well, apparently surrenderings of civil wars. That's apparently what happens. And
I'd name a town after that. Yeah.
And in Washington, D.C., the news hits, and a Southern conspirator by the name of John Wilkes Booth meets with 4 conspirators in the Mary Surratt house in Washington, D.C. And the fear of, quote, losing the ideas of, I guess... It's a white supremacist ideology, but the fear that...
Like most of America's foundation.
Yeah, no. Well, the doors have been blown off of that in this episode, but, you know, he was afraid of losing his way of life, and fear motivated him to actually shoot Abraham Lincoln in the back of the head, right?
Wow.
In the middle of a play, which that's a real inconvenient time, and as an actor... in that play, in that situation, I probably would have been like, you're going to assassinate him now? You couldn't have done it on the carriage ride over, or maybe waited till after? Like, I spent like 9 weeks memorizing my lines, dude. Like, you're an actor. Why didn't you respect that? No, but John Wilkes Booth let fear dictate his actions, and as a result of it, the country lost the president that was willing to let the other side, Americans, back into the Union. Right? All because he was afraid of the idea that southern states were going to lose the prospect of slavery. Right? And he found 4 dumb SOBs who were willing to comply and who were easily manipulated. And one of them attempted to carry out a task of killing William Seward. There was one conspirator, forgetting his name, he was supposed to assassinate the vice president. He didn't do it because he got afraid.
Huh.
Yeah, he went to a bar and drank.
You love fear.
That's kind of a bitch conspirator.
It kind of just shows both sides of it, like afraid of the consequences.
Afraid of the consequences, afraid of losing your way of life. What outweighs the other?
It's a battle of fear. That's crazy.
It was a battle of fear in that situation, and
An internal struggle of fear.
Yeah, and I just wonder what John Wilkes Booth was hoping to gain. Good Lord, it's been a
lot of history.
It's been a rough go in America for the last 100 years or so.
Oh no, you like the entire time we've been America.
Yeah. Well, and
or the United States.
Yeah.
Imagine having such pride for your country and arrogance that you name your country just generically after an entire continent.
Yeah. Just whatever.
Oh, we're just the entire other half of the world by ourselves,
Well, I feel like Indiana is the most American state because it's naming streets after better states. I think I've passed like 3 Tennessee streets.
We have so many small town country roads that they just end up all basically being the same name.
I will say, I have been to Anderson, I've been to Greencastle, I've been to Terre Haute, and I've been to Indianapolis. And I gotta say, I've had my fill. I'm good. I've seen all of Indiana that I need to see.
Okay,
I might go up to Fort Wayne, but I am genuinely afraid of what else is in Indiana.
You should go to a nature park in the southern part of Indiana.
So Kentucky.
No. Two very different things.
I wouldn't willingly go to Kentucky either.
Oh. But the southern part of Indiana, it's hilly, it's pretty, it's like, it would be the place that I would go if I was like, I'm going to go live in a cabin. Right?
You wouldn't go to East Tennessee up in the mountains? Maybe in the Rockies in Colorado?
Maybe. I don't know.
Are you a mountains guy or are you a beach guy?
I'm definitely. I'm probably more of a forest guy.
Well,
I guess that would be mountains. Sure.
Sort of. I guess.
I've never really been to a mountain as like a vacation trip. I've seen mountains, but I haven't like.
I think you would like Oregon then, because it's very. I mean, there are some parts that are very hilly and mountainy, but it's very just. Forest. That's Oregon.
That's also just Indiana. At a nature park. At a nature park,
that's different.
Yeah. The original Indiana before, mass industrialization, urbanization of a shit ton of people that probably there's too many of. I'm going to be quite frank. But going back to fear.
Indiana, where people let their dogs shit in Taco Bell parking lots. That's the truth. You were in the car, man. You were in the car.
Yeah, I was.
You were in the car with us.
I repressed it. I didn't want to think about it. I know. Please, that not be the mascot for my entire home state. Oh, God.
Fear. Back to fear.
I'm going to go back to the nature park before there was a bunch of people, right?
Okay.
And so I think fear... The reason why fear is such a primary emotion, especially for humans, is because fear is the one emotion that keeps the rest of the entire living organisms that, aren't plants alive. So if you aren't human and you aren't a plant, fear is the thing that motivates you to live.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think about that. Like, if you put yourself into the perspective of a bird or a squirrel, it's probably just, oh my God, where am I gonna get my next nut? Like, where did I dig it? Where did I find it? I forget what that is. What if I starve to death? What if somebody else gets it? What if I'm gonna get eaten by a hawk and just snatched from the ground? What's gonna happen to my kids if I can't find this food? I wonder what's gonna happen with the winter. Like, it's all just fear, and that, I think fear creates instincts, and that's how non-conscious beings have lived for so long, is through fear.
Well, is it a good thing? Is fear a good thing? Do we need it? Well, that's a legitimate question, because I think about it in the context of my relationship with both my parents. Obviously, they're not going to like this episode, but no, I fear motivates me to the fear of inadequacy is what's pushing me now. The fear of settling, the fear of only being average. That's what's driving me right now. That's why I'm, reading about comedy whenever I'm not recording a podcast that's, You know, like that's the fear of not being enough.
I think the question, is fear a good thing? Is blank a good thing is my least favorite question of all time.
Okay, I will remember to ask it on every single episode from here on out.
So, and I'll explain it in terms of fear this time. And I'll start it off with an analogy. Are painkillers a good thing?
Absolutely, if you're taking them right.
See, if you're taking them right, why is there like, okay, what if you're not taking them right? Are they a good thing if you're not taking them right?
As a person who's gone under, if my pain meds hadn't worked, I'd probably have a really messed up shoulder.
But, yeah, true. But in that sense, like, you make a great point. Painkillers, like, that use of painkillers in a surgical sense of, I'm going to fix your body so you can live the rest of your life in comfort, and you use painkillers to help in that process, that is one of the most beautiful things that you can use a drug for.
That's a pretty big fear alleviator.
Yeah, and but then think about painkillers as an addictive substance, like heroin addicts. That's just a painkiller. Heroin is a extremely high potency version of an opioid that is not regulated by a doctor. And so in that sense, a painkiller is one of the biggest killers and fastest growing drug addictions in Indiana right now. It is a huge opioid crisis in the Midwest.
Well, we still haven't addressed that one yet.
Yeah. So with that,
no wonder you guys are letting weeds grow through the highway. You're just chilled out on painkillers the whole time.
Oh, wow. We
sorry.
love generalizations. It's
no,
okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry. You can attack Tennessee in the next episode, and it's probably well-founded.
Hey, I haven't been there enough. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you need to.
I just passed through it to Florida. That's basically the entire life of an Indiana.
It is a pass-through state.
Indianian. A Hoosier.
Yeah.
But,
fear, good thing. No.
Is fear a good thing? I mean, if it helps, if you come at the perspective of, does it help somebody survive? Yeah, it's a good thing. It can help somebody not want to be a failure for their life. Like, that's a pretty good motivator. If you're afraid of not being successful or not actually trying or giving a shit. That's a great use of fear. A terrible use of fear is the entire structural foundation for racism.
Yep.
Racism is founded on fear and more fear. And the perception that they aren't fearful and acting as if they aren't to portray that they are extremely afraid.
So, what do you think is the core fear with racism? Why do you think people, in spite of, like, take away all ethical and moral debates about the idea of hating somebody for the color of their skin, what I would consider to be a minute detail in the genetic makeup of a person, considering we're 98.6% alike anyways. That, like, 1.4%, that's where we get the different hair color, different eyes, facial hair, skin color, skin pigments, just like all moral and ethical debates. Look at what happens to a racist on Twitter today. Right? Why would you not look at that and at least turn the microphone off before explaining your theories? Why? What is that core thing that just really helps people stay racist? What is it?
Okay.
It's obviously a fear, but what is it a fear of?
A fear of changing. It's a fear of not being good enough and not being right in the entire... So, let's say that your favorite color was pink, all right? And you've loved pink for your entire life.
I told you that in confidence, Landon.
Okay. And you're 40 years old, and you have written books about how pink is the best color, how your grandparents sported pink since they were young, and that was a form of honor and a form of showing that they are a good person, and that's what they learned. So, in a sense, that fear, that desire to love pink is what they were passed down and is what is motivating and has been pushing generations of their family. Now, what if all of a sudden they have this tiny app on their phone where somebody says pink is the worst color and you are wrong for loving pink? That fear is the fear of not loving pink and possibly considering that pink is a bad color means that they have to face their entire past life, relationships with their family, entire foundational systems they've taught their kids, and things that they learned from their fathers, their grandfathers, their history books.
Right, because their grandfathers were fighting people whose favorite color was lavender.
Exactly. And so it is a source of cultural heritage to love pink. Now, if you trade the words love pink for hate black, then there's that analogy.
Well, I mean, that there it is.
Now, how do you talk to somebody about that? How do you be like, hey, so your love for pink or your hate for a certain skin color or ethnicity is the systematic and foundational issues on a lot of the problems in our entire country and society.
Well, I do think that racism and American patriotism tend to go hand in hand, at least with a certain demographic, and that certain demographic is controlling the Electoral College. But we don't have to get into that right now. It's true. It's true.
It is true.
Why are we withholding the... What are we afraid of the truth? Why are we afraid of the truth? Why are we afraid of saying things for what they are? The Electoral College was put in place so that slave states could still maintain a little bit of power in the, I don't know how many states were back then, but I know that there were enough that slave states were starting to lose power, right? The Electoral College was put in place to maintain the establishment of slavery, okay? That's a fact. That's been proven by historians. You can't deny that. You can't deny the track record of the Electoral College. It's not representative of the American population. It never has been. It never will be. Why do we still have it? Sorry. I hope that's the last one. I hope that's the last one.
Oh, it won't be. There's going to be so many rants.
We're 40 minutes in. What do you mean? We're nearing the...
I thought you meant rants. That's all this is just one huge long rant back and forth. But
it's just...
If your question is how to deal with it, then I'm not sure. And I think that's what we are trying to figure out as an entire country right now is how do you politely, not even politely, how do you respectfully and productively go about talking about these issues? How do you talk about 250 years of trauma that is continually pressing and continually affects our lives and people try to ignore it? I don't know how to do that. How do you face fear in the eyes of some other person and be like, hey, this is okay to have, this is okay to deal with, we can do it together, but here it is.
Let me answer your question with a question. How did you overcome your personal fears? How did you come over any preconceived bias, or how did you, specifically Landen Wood, member of the Woodsmen podcast, what our parents said, how did you overcome fear?
My overcoming fear for me was always trying to be the best person I can be. That's what I've been doing for my entire life, so I'm doing right now, and that's what I'll try to do the rest of my life. I used to think that everybody was trying their best and always giving their 100% to being the best person that they can be. But as I started to realize that the real world is not that nice, that's what's been motivating me, is I want to be the best person that I can possibly be, and I'm never going to be perfect, but that's okay. And so that mindset...
How do you take that mindset to somebody who really loves the color pink? How do you transfer that piece of wisdom? And it is wisdom. It's not knowledge, it's wisdom.
You can't. You can offer as much as you want, but you can't make anybody listen to you. You can yell at somebody, but you can't make them listen. So you have to trust the process of individuals that in their path and whatever their life circumstance is, at some point they will make the choice to listen to other people and try to better themselves.
That is a very optimistic approach to humanity, to which I do not hold. I firmly believe that if you really want to teach somebody that, hey, there are other colors too, that's not just the color pink, you have to teach them at a very young age. That's not happening. It's not happening in our school system. It bothers the living shit out of me. It really does, that people are holding on to their fears, because fear is what, like you said, what drives racism.
But you can't eradicate fear, because fear is the driving force for a lot of people. And like we said earlier, like, fear of not being good enough may end up being the reason why a person ends up loving the color pink.
Mm-hmm.
So fear isn't the issue. The issue is not looking at other people's perspectives and arrogance that your perspective is the only one and is the right one.
Well, if we're talking about in the context of loving all colors instead of loving specifically pink, yeah, I'm not going to be too nice about it. I mean, that's just who I am. You're more of a spiritual, understanding guy, and I'm a rigid, sarcastic asshole who's trying to make his way in the world as a comedian. That's just kind of where we're at.
But I guess the reason why I go about it that way is because nobody's going to listen to me if I try the other way. Like, if I try to be like, you're a fucking piece of shit, why aren't you listening to me? They're going to be like, fuck you. I'm never going to listen to anything you say if you come at me like that.
Well,
so...
Okay, you know me. I'm not going to take that approach. I'm just not going to...
You don't go to that extreme, but, like, the energy can be the same. So, I don't know. That's where, like, the cancel culture is, like...
You can't be afraid of cancel culture. Yeah, you just can't. Not in today's world. Twitter's not real. It's
True.
Representative of, like, 2% of the population. Myself included.
But, to that extent...
If cancel culture is simply pointing out, hey, you said a really sexist, racist, transphobic, xenophobic, anti-Semitic, like, that's not necessarily a bad thing when you're canceling somebody over a bad date. I don't know.
Okay, if it's just like, it's just a room full of echoes. That's what social media and things like that is. It's not a legit conversation. It is simply, I'm going to throw my opinions onto a Post-it note wall and hope somebody else throws a Post-it note below my Post-it note that says that they agree with my Post-it note. Like, that's it. It's not a face-to-face conversation. There's no single amount of humanity to it. It is simply I'm going to throw my opinions on here, and then somebody's going to tell me that my opinions are wrong. So in that sense, if you follow that structure, no matter what the belief system is, every single belief system is going to be wrong, because you're yelling at somebody that they're wrong.
Well, then maybe I need to just stop getting on social media.
Hey, that's a great idea, man. That was definitely your idea.
That was my idea?
Yeah, it was your idea.
Was that my idea?
Yeah, it was.
Fucking hippie.
I definitely agree with you. I may take your advice, man. I may stop getting on social media.
Well, I gotta be on social media because we gotta produce this podcast.
Yeah, I know. It's a double-edged sword, like everything.
I think. Well, honestly, now that you said that, I'm sort of cultivating my own fear every time I go on social media. Probably going to drop the shit now. I'm not going to lie.
Really?
Yeah. No, I mean, why would I let someone else's fear dictate what I believe? Why would I let someone else's opinion dictate how I feel about a certain situation?
Isn't that crazy?
I didn't really realize how much I was letting social media affect my perception of the world until you mentioned that.
It's like waking up. It's like, oh my god, wait, you're telling me that a bunch of little words on a screen
don't mean anything at all, and they don't have to mean anything at all?
And that I'm just putting my own meaning to them because I think somebody else has meaning towards them? That's crazy.
And now that I've just sort of been slapped in the face with that, I don't see how I can ever go back.
Well, I'm sorry that you are taking the red pill and that you pulled a Neo from the Matrix. Welcome to the other side, I guess.
Well, it's great. It's great to meet you. I'm glad. I'm glad it only took 3 episodes before I did a complete character transformation.
We love it.
That's terrific work on your end, sir.
Thank you.
Well, folks, I think we maybe said 3 things about what our parents said about fear, but Landon,
That's enough.
Landon, once again, what a fantastic intellectual conversation. And I must say, this is getting more fun, more entertaining, and I am thoroughly enjoying getting to know you a lot better through this.
I couldn't agree more, man. It's awesome to put the growth of a friendship onto a podcast.
And it's awesome to subscribe and donate to the podcast because we are running low on money. We have...
I'm running low on microwavable mac and cheese. I don't know what I'm going to eat next weekend.
I don't know. I need my Snapple tea and I need my Pizza Hut.
Listen, though. Taco Bell gave us way too much mild and Diablo sauce.
Okay.
And I'm so thankful because now I have a drawer full of them. So I can put them on literally any food item, whatever, and imagine that it's Taco Bell.
Well, when you order $43 worth of Taco Bell on a Friday night... Oh my God, did I tell you that my dad contacted me about me Venmoing everybody back like $10, $10. And he was like, yeah, I got a text from Suntra saying there's been some hanky-panky activity going on with one of your accounts. It turned out to be a fake text, but he looked at it and was like, dude, what are you spending your money on? I'm like, food, man. I'm hungry.
They don't give us food.
Well,
We're
they never
so deprived.
Delta Upsilon has not given us a single
Brunch?
Has not given us brunch. Has not given us dinner. I don't know if that's just because of the pandemic, but I mean, when you're scrounging for food, $10, hell yeah, you're willing to pick up that credit card charge of $43 fucking a Taco Bell. Yeah, I'll Venmo you $10.
Hashtag thank you, Sam.
Hashtag thank you, Sam. Speaking of Sam, we are going to go run with him tomorrow at 8, and we're going to try some meditation as well.
Indeed.
Well, folks, that is going to do it for this episode of What Our Parents Said. Like I previously plugged, please like and subscribe both our YouTube channel, our Twitter account, and of course follow us on anchor.fm as we deconstruct American politics, racism, sex, relationships, all through what our parents taught us. Have a great weekend, folks. It's only Monday, but whenever you listen to this, so have a great weekend.
Have a good one.